Today, I am psyched to be visiting David Cancel, the founder and CEO of Drift. He's built an incredible company that's growing fast, and a lot of that is due to his focus on people strategy. Let's hear some of his wisdom. Great. I am so excited to be talking talent with David Cancel, a person who really doesn't need an introduction, but as the former Chief Product Officer of HubSpot, and more importantly, the CEO of Drift, which is the category king of conversational marketing. I'm so excited to be here with you talking talent. So could you tell us about Drift?
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, super.
Drift is this thing that we call conversational marketing. Basically what we do is we help businesses have conversations with their prospects and customers because we think that's the shortest path to revenue, right? And so like we're bringing it old school instead of using technology to be able to have those conversations 24/7 and build that connection with the customers.
Oh, fantastic. So we should let the audience know, you and I are both in a competition for Entrepreneur of the Year.
Yeah, that's true.
In 6 days, it'll be announced. It's probably already been picked and in the envelope.
For sure.
I'd like to wager a single beer.
Okay.
And we'll see.
Who wins?
Yes.
All right. We'll see who buys.
We see who buys. That'd be great. Mm-hmm. And I hope it's you, because I really like beer. So I wanted to ask you a question. The reputation about Drift is you get a ton of discretionary effort out of your people. Like they work hard.
Yes.
And they work hard, but it doesn't seem like they mind it. Mm-hmm. How do you do that?
It's a hard thing. I mean, we from the very beginning have been trying this experiment with Drift, which is to create, I kind of view most organizations as a push, right? And what I mean by that is that it's like, it's super top down and you're like pushing people to hit something, to hit some goal, to do something. And so what we've been trying to do, and the experiment is not concluded yet, is how do we create a pull, right? How do we hire people who are super passionate and want to grow irregardless of the business, right? Because of their own personal passion. And if we can get enough of those people and line up enough opportunities for them internally and constantly be pushing them to the next opportunity of growth, they're doing it for their own reason. And like they pull us, right? They pull the entire company with us.
So growth mindset people, do you have a special way to interview growth mindset people?
Yes, I have crazy ways of interviewing.
And you don't want to tell them that?
Oh, no, I have all crazy ones, but I only hesitate because then people get nervous when they're around me. But I'm basically...
Well, give one old one that you might not reuse.
I did an old one that I don't do anymore. And since we have this glass of water, it's called the water test. I wrote like an article on it a long time ago, which got people mad. And basically the idea was like, look, when you're interviewing someone, you usually offer them a glass of water or coffee or something like that. And so I would usually be the tail end on the interview. And one thing I would watch for is when they get up to leave, do they go and reach to take care of the glass, right? Do they go and say like, oh, what should I do with this glass? Should I bring it somewhere? Should I bring it to the kitchen or not? Or do they just shake your hand and just leave the glass, their food, whatever else is there and just walk out the door?
Right.
And that was like, and I have enough data now, hundreds and hundreds of people that I've gone through that with, to say like it's a tell, right? It's a tell during the interview process. They're going to be the same way right in the office. And for us, that's not something that we want. We want someone who cares about every detail.
Yeah.
So the water test.
So now that's a really cool test, and thank you for sharing. And we won't steal any of your other secrets.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of them.
That's great. I'll look forward to interviewing with you. Yeah. So how do you monitor burnout? Like, so you get these people who are like really like self-motivated. Do you have to monitor burnout, or if you get the pull? Definitely.
Yeah, I was talking with someone about this yesterday who doesn't work here, who's a multi-time CMO, and he was asking that same question. I was saying like, that's probably one of the hardest ones because the type of person that is this growth mindset person, like it's hard to put, you can put guardrails around, you can try to like coach them, but it's hard for them to get them to follow those guardrails. And so they ultimately, it's really up to that individual. We kind of try to talk about it a lot with people, but you can't force someone to do something, as you know, right? And you can't force them to like step back. One thing that we tell every new person that comes in here is like, look, this Drift, we have very long vision of what we want to do. We don't think about it as a marathon versus sprint. We think this is an ultra marathon. We're running 200 miles, like preserve, take care of yourself. It's going to be a long epic. We kind of think of our mission in terms of decades. And so like, this is going to take a long, long time. There is no short version of this.
Oh, that's awesome. I was actually going to ask you about the marathon sprint. And
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, it's ultra marathon.
It's ultra marathon.
It's
We're running
ultra
200
marathon.
miles.
But it seems like your people are running pretty fast.
Yeah. You're gonna have to take some naps. It's hard.
Do you ever force people to take a day off and just be like, you out?
What I do with the people that I work with directly, well, we do a couple things. One, from the very beginning, we instituted this idea of like 3-year sabbaticals. At the last company, we had 5 years, but we were like, since this group is like running so hard, let's do it every 3 years. So we forced that for sure.
Oh, that's great. How long is their sabbatical?
A month.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
month.
great.
And then by that, we have an escalating kind of PTO, but by that time you effectively have, I think it's a little over 2 months of PTO with the sabbatical, right? And so we try to push that. We try to push, when people give referrals, like when they refer someone here for a job, we give them, you know, a 3-day weekend away anywhere in the world, right? With them plus one. Right? Like that's
awesome.
a bonus.
That's awesome.
And then we have a thing called a 101 club for people in CS and sales, and when they're over 101% of their goal, they get entered into a referral trip as well. So we're always trying to like push people to take trips and go. And then, but it is a hard thing to kind of monitor. It's something that you have to talk about for sure.
Do you, you know, you're obviously very passionate about talent people. So how do you get your managers to be as bought in as you are about it?
Yeah. So it's easy when you start from the ground up. It's harder for existing companies because you have a mixture of personalities that have come in there over the years. For us, it's kind of, I always say, like, it's easy because we've like been doing it from every single person. And so you wake up one day and you're like, oh, how do you have 300 people like this? It's like, we chose every person at a time to be this way. And so the managers were chosen because
of that growth.
Of that growth mindset, yeah.
So I want to shift gears a little on you. Just sort of, this is something tough. Like, we're a tech company in Boston, you're a tech company in Boston. There aren't a lot of females in STEM.
No.
You know, so the diversity, not just gender diversity, but gender and race.
Yeah.
How do you focus on diversity here in Boston? And I really want to know the answer because we're doing good, but not great.
Yeah, it's a great question. This is like one of my topics for sure. I'd say there's a couple things. One, like, it's actually pretty simple but difficult. All answers are, I think, like simple but not easy. The simple answer is like you have to go the extra mile to try to find someone. And so like I would talk to someone like, let's say one of our internal recruiters who's passionate about diversity, and they would want to talk about in the early days, we need a program, we need an inclusion thing, we need like what programs and
you're like, just go find someone.
Yeah, I'm like, you are a recruiter. Like,
go find them.
Instead of taking the easiest person that comes to you, which is like all the inbound leads, do the extra work.
So you think it's a top of funnel issue? Yes,
do the extra work. Well, two things. I think there's one way that you can do that, but that's not enough to hit the goals that we all want as a company, right?
Sure.
And so I'd say do the hard work. That's what we push everyone to do, and that's what we do. The second thing is like it's a multi-generational problem, right? And that's the answer that no one wants to give. And so it is mathematically impossible, right? So like if we want perfect either gender diversity or ethnic diversity in STEM, the numbers aren't there. It's impossible.
Yeah,
so like,
all companies can't do it.
Can't do it, exactly. So like even if you magically could at your company, which is close to impossible, that means if you get to 50% gender diversity, the company next to you has to be at 3%, right? Because the math is not there. And so what we do is that we set up a foundation, actually, a Drift Foundation, and I personally, from a philanthropic standpoint, it's one of my passion areas. It's like we give towards initiatives that teach people back in high school and elementary school to get gender and ethnic diversity in STEM. Because it's a math problem. So, and that's I believe the answer is it's a multi-generational problem, just like any of these problems. No one wants that. They want a hashtag, they want an initiative, they want like a magic quick fix. There's no quick fix, right? It's math.
Gina Raimondo, the governor of Rhode Island, she is offering something for all STEM students. It's $7,000 a year debt reduction.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. It's like such an incentive to get into
And those are the things to do. We got to start back at even college is a little bit late. Is late in my opinion, right? Like that's why we focus on high school and elementary school. Like we have to increase the numbers.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Oh, that's awesome. That's great. I mean, we were just talking about this in an offsite yesterday, and we also believe it's a top of funnel issue. We also think there can be some stuff with learning and development, like redeveloping people inside.
Oh, totally.
How do you approach now that you're big enough that you can actually have some learning and development? How are you thinking about that?
We've invested in like learning and development from like the time we were like 80 people, so kind of early for us. And so we do a couple things. Another program that we do is we do a thing with Hack Diversity. So we have Hack Diversity interns who come in here, and that's on the gender diversity, the ethnic diversity in STEM. And so they come in as interns, we train them, and we have training for them inside of STEM, inside of here. We also have high school stuff that we have them bring in. But from a learning development standpoint, we're looking to people in other roles that are non-STEM roles and trying to train them to take on more technical roles. We might not bring them in as a programmer, as an engineer, but we might bring them in as an AI kind of conversational kind of annotator, assistant, or whatever, which is a very technical role, kind of on the step towards becoming an engineer.
That's great. So there's hopefully a lot of aspiring C-suite people who are going to want to hear from you. Like, you know, if you're looking back at, you know, managers, directors, they might be managing one person, they might be managing five, you know, a little bit of budget.
Sure.
You know, what advice would you give them about talent to get there?
There's so much that I can give here. I'd say one that I'm kind of really focused on because of the stage that we're in is that depending on your stage, and like at our stage, like we're moving quickly, right? Just like you guys are. And what I caution all managers on is like you want to invest in those people and bring them up, right, on your team. But I kind of say you can only have one project. Like you can only have one project on your team, meaning like you can only have the bandwidth to really invest in one person, and for the rest of your team, how large whatever size it is, bring in more people who have seen this before, who are more experienced.
You can't have 5 projects going on.
You can't have 5 projects on. And so we have been feeling that, right? Because I could look at some managers and say like, you have 5 projects going on, which is impossible, that's why you're redlining, and that next person you want to hire is another project. Like, we can't do this. Like, you got to bring in some people who have experience.
You need some stability.
Yeah, and some stability, and then you can focus your time on nurturing and bringing someone up on the team.
Do you have a good way to, if someone is sort of a project,
yeah.
do you have a place to put projects in your organization where they could be successful?
We kind of sprinkle them all within the teams, so every team has them, and project is not a bad thing, right? Someone that you want to mentor and nurture.
It's development.
Yeah, it's development. But we just try to like get the ratios down to make sure that we don't have a lot. We woke up at one point kind of in our history and was like, everyone has like the majority of their team are people that they're trying to nurture and invest and grow, which obviously leaves you no bandwidth to operate.
Yeah. That's amazing. These are some really, really great lessons. So one personal question, how do you make sure you get enough work-life balance so you have the recovery and the energy to do what you do?
Yeah, I think this is one of my favorite topics. Like, I kind of look at work-life balance differently than I think most people interpret it. I think most people that I meet who ask me about it want work-life balance at a very micro level, meaning like today I had 22 minutes I had for breakfast, I had 19 minutes for this, I had 16 minutes for that. Like, they want this perfect thing.
Yeah.
Most of those people that I meet that strive for that are miserable because they can never achieve that, right? That's like impossible. And kids will teach you this, right? Like, and what I think is that nature kind of ebbs and flows, right? The sun rises, the sun sets, the tide comes in, the tide comes out. And at a zoomed out level, you have to make sure that you have balance, but you're going to be wildly out of balance in lots of places of your life, and that's okay. Like, for me, my daughter graduated, like I said, this week. That day, I'm wildly out of balance, focus 100% on family. I don't care about work. Like, the next day I might be out of balance, like totally focused on work. And then it keeps going like that. And I don't look for those perfectly
You're not trying to get perfect days, but you'd like to have a perfect year.
Perfect year, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the best way to say
Well,
it.
are you getting 8 hours of sleep?
Yeah, I get 8 hours of sleep.
Oh, that's
for sure.
awesome.
I went to the doctor this week, last week, and he's like, you have really good blood pressure. And I was like, for my age? And he's like, no, for your job as the CEO.
It is. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such sage advice. David, thank you. This is great.
Thank
I
you
love
so much.
speaking with you. That's
Thank
wonderful.
you for having me.